Yeah, it'd be really cool if in a couple thousand years, well, I realize to some extent it's already happening now, but people just went back to like the Christian mythology and created games to play with those characters. Although we already have
doing that.
Yeah, we have that now, but I mean, where that was the only real use for it. Yeah, people have a right to believe whatever they want. And the question as it was written was, if it doesn't hinder progress, that's where we get into the sticky, because I see all false beliefs as hindrances to progress, just not all to the same extent.
Right.
You can believe something and be wrong about it, but it will hinder progress. They're not all going to have the same effect. And so I think that there are, right now, if you made a list of the world's religions, I couldn't rank them all in appropriate order, but I could definitely divide them up into categories as to which I think are most harmful to society on the whole, which I think are most harmful to individuals, which I think are, the least harmful to any category, progress, societal health, whatever. I'd like to see them all go away, but I want them to go away for good reasons.
Well, what I find, like with religion, is when religious myths can be seen as myths and as fiction by religious people, and they use religion in terms of a social or cultural context due to tradition, because there are many societies around the world that are very traditional. But if they can see their myths for being myths, and they don't hinder science, they don't come into the area of politics, they don't come into the area of progress, because they realize these are things that, so it is a sort of dualistic mentality that they would have to have. But what would be so wrong with that,
What would be so wrong with it is that they are believing something is true when there's no good reason to think there's true.
But, she said that they're recognized that they're myths.
Yeah.
But she called them religious people. If I'm assuming that, there are Christians who believe that the Genesis account is a myth,
yes,
but they still believe that there is a God and other things like that behind it. Now, and they don't necessarily let it affect their daily lives or scientific progress. If you're talking about people like that, then yes, they're less harmful than the alternative, but they are still harmful to progress because they believe something that is not demonstrably true. And it doesn't matter if they recognize that there's a myth here. The problem is that they're looking at that myth and thinking that they're going to get some important knowledge or information out of it, that there is some being somewhere that has a message to convey to them. Now, if they've completely removed all, I just...
No, not what you're saying is that they would get some benefit out of it, but no, you said something else, but I think they can get some spiritual benefit out of it, meaning it makes them quieter or calmer to...
What is spiritual?
It makes them quieter or calmer people to subscribe to something that allows them to... basically, like, it's sort of an escape, like going to a movie, like you were saying, the Terminator, or any sort of heroism, or
I don't even know what you mean by spiritual, but like going to the movie,
like just being quiet or being calm. I don't mean like spiritual in the religious sense. I mean, I hear spiritual used in other senses. Obviously, you don't like spiritual at all.
I hate the word. I despise it with the fiery passion of 1,000 suns. But Jeff wants to comment on it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's people like Joseph Campbell.
Okay.
He studies mythology and is a proponent of this idea that the inspiration that we can get from mythology is valuable in its own right. Okay.
Right.
And I think what I would say is there would be nothing wrong with people turning to myths for inspiration, any more than there's anything wrong with me turning to a Spider-Man comic book for inspiration.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't, if I turned to a Spider-Man comics for my inspiration, I wouldn't call myself a Spider-Man worshiper. I wouldn't say that I'm a religious person in the Spider-Man cult. I would say I'm a regular old person that is looking at, various things that I realize aren't actually true and finding some inspiration in them, right? I can't think of an example in the real world of anything I'd call a religion where its members are not people who actually believe that something underlying the myths ultimately is actually true, which is what Matt was talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's my response to your question is, wow, if that's all that people are using the mythology for, they're not religious. Mm-hmm. That's not religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, for example, I've known some people who are Quakers, like the non-traditional liberal variety of Quakers, and many of them are atheists. Some of them call themselves Christians, but their main focus is like on values. It's not on any myth, but they do have this idea of a light. Like, you know, there's the light could be inside of you, not necessarily outside, but it's something good that's in all of us, and you know, they concentrate on that. So I think that's like a beautiful sort of idea of spirituality, just something that makes you quieter and calmer and come together with other people.
I just want to make one more comment. What do we need all these quiet, calm people for? What is so great about being quiet and calm necessarily?
It sounds like you're taking this ill-defined word spiritual,
and
using it to promote to promote, you know, a pacified populace.
Yeah, I think quiet and calmness is a fine thing in the right context.
And I think finding inspiration in things is fine. And I think poetry is fine. And finding some kind of poetic, you know, meaning or whatever. Those are all different. They all already have labels. What the hell does spiritual mean? Because you're saying they get a spiritual benefit. I still want to know. What does spiritual mean?
Well, spiritual benefit in sense, it just helps you to like maybe develop your mind toward good values. It's the same as, you know, what atheists tend to do. It's not any different from any human being. It's just
there's nothing I do that I would label spiritual, not only because I don't know what the hell the definition of the word is, but because I have words for the things that I do.
Yeah. What do you call them?
For what?
What do you call, you know, trying to develop your mind towards better values or compassion or...
Reasoning, empathy.
That's reasoning?
Yeah, reason is what guides in my morals, among other things, but so does empathy. I'm still trying to figure out, people keep using this word spiritual, and I am completely convinced that it is a nonsense word that they use to try to find some middle ground between being religious and non-religious. I think it is a misuse of language to use this ill-defined term in the hopes that other people won't call you on it, and I'll call you on it. I want to know what it means.
And to the extent that you can use a word like that as a catch-all for a whole bunch of different things you might find nice, you know, kindness and calm and wisdom and insight, those things, right?
Yeah.
I think as a catch-all term for those things, the term spiritual is inherently oversimplistic. I think those
lazy.
are all different things. Largely, they're very different things.
It's an exercise in laziness, and I think it is dishonest, because many times.
See, there you go again. I mean, that's the same thing you said last
you
time.
You bastard!
I'm being honest. It is laziness to use the term, and I think it's dishonest.
That's your definition, Matt. That's your definition.
What?
That's your definition.
No, it's not my definition. I'm giving you my opinion.
Okay.
It is lazy to use that term, and it is also dishonest, because generally when people use that term, they're talking about how they're achieving some greater insight or whatever. And you know what the true key to developing greater insight is? It's to actually investigate, define terms, and understand them, not lump everything together under one feel-good, ill-defined term. That is mud. That is not clarity. It is not. Simplification is the hallmark of intelligence. And when you have this muddied term that doesn't mean anything, it's lazy. It says, I really don't want to think about this too hard. I really don't want to investigate this too hard. I really don't want to dig into why I think what I think. I just want to kind of go and enjoy it. Well, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to do that. But don't pretend like you're getting some sort of enlightenment out of it and then put a label on it that people could ooh and ah over. It drives me crazy.